So if we look at the way a typical domestic fire develops in the room of fire origin, so this is a furniture fire, an armchair fire, as you can see here, then initially of course the fire grows, and then after 3 or 4 minutes in this case, you can see already that the room is filling with quite dense smoke. And after about 5 minutes, if you were sitting in that room, as you can see here, you wouldn't be able to see your hand in front of your face. And the fire continues to develop from there. So there's a very serious hazard that somebody, perhaps who was sleeping in the room of fire origin, wouldn't be aroused until the detection went off, maybe after 2 or 3 minutes, and then would wake up to find themselves in a scenario like this. Or maybe they would be in another room and would enter perhaps to collect belongings, which often occurs at an early stage, and then find themselves trapped in this kind of scenario. If we look at the situation beyond the room of origin, in this case we've taken a video which I've got these are stills from a video taken from the top of a stair on the landing here. You can see the same sort of thing. After 3 or 4 minutes, the fire that I showed you earlier is producing a very energetic plume which is flowing upstairs and causing severe obscuration and high concentrations of asphyxiant gases on the upper landing, therefore causing severe problems for anybody trying to use this stair as an escape route. And this little diagram kind of summarises some of this stuff. So if we're in the room of origin, what are the real hazards facing somebody in the room of origin? Well, about half people who are injured or die in the room of fire origin are intimate with the fire. That is to say that they've often set fire to their clothing, maybe from misuse of a naked flame or from dropping a cigarette or something like that. And so people who are in that scenario, usually you find that the injuries they have are burn injuries. They die or are severely injured by heat or flames before they have time to inhale a significant quantity of toxic smoke. So they're mainly heat injuries. But if they're sitting in the same room, say on the other side of that room, away from the initial flaming fire source, then usually the first hazard that they're exposed to is the descending smoke layer, which is hot and contains these very high concentrations of smoke and toxic gases. And victims who are rescued or die in that kind of scenario usually have a combination of both severe burns, because the upper layer gets very hot, and high concentrations of toxic gases in their blood, very high carboxyhemoglobin concentration. When we think of people who are in maybe open bedrooms on the floor above the fire, then the big hazard to them is the smoke plume. Once this fire gets to a size of 20-30 kilowatts or more, starts to produce a lot of smoke, that very energetic plume pours out of the room of origin and pours up into the upper stairwell area and into any open rooms. And so that plume will cause incapacitation within a couple of minutes of the person first being exposed to it, maybe 4 or 5 minutes from the time of ignition. If the subject is in a closed bedroom with the door closed, then they do have quite a bit of protection, and indeed they should be able to survive in there for up to half an hour or so, depending on how the fire develops on the floor below. But if they decide to open the bedroom door and step out onto the landing, then they're going to be immediately confronted by this high density smoke plume. It won't be that hot, it might be up to 100 degrees centigrade, so uncomfortable but not at burning temperature. But the density of the smoke, the irritancy of the smoke, and especially the content of asphyxiant gases will cause collapse, maybe after a few breaths, which will have them collapsing on the stairs and therefore unable to escape. A further development though can be if the windows fail in the fire room, or if somebody opens a door, an external door, and lets more ventilation into the fire, then that fire in the room of origin may go to flashover. Once it's gone to flashover, then of course the plume that comes out is much more energetic, and the concentration and yields of toxic gases are much higher. So the plume that's spreading out and filling all the open areas of the building is much worse. And of course, if, for example, somebody's taken refuge in a bedroom, they're still then under considerable danger, because the fire maybe then get big enough to threaten the whole structure of the building.